I've been forgetting a lot of things recently, but thanks to my reminders, my posts, and a lot of your comments, I also keep remembering them. I'm currently on a plane right now, on my way back home. I decided there was no point in staying even a day longer than necessary, so I'm currently on my way back home. I'm not sure what to think about Andrea. It does seem suspicious that she somehow knew that I would forget what happened in the room, and something tells me she's not telling me everything that I forgot. I broke down and attempted to call the number that she gave me earlier, but it went straight to voicemail. Not that I was expecting anything different. I had brought 3 of my grandfather's journals with me in order to look over them on the flight. I found something at the end of the second journal. It appeared to be pages from my grandfather's medical file. According to what I read, my grandfather had been diagnosed with lung cancer 2 months before he died. He had declined treatment, so he knew he was going to die eventually. This really struck me as odd. If he was going to die so soon anyway, what was the reason for the mother to kill him? And why did he never tell me about the cancer? According to the file, the cancer had spread quite a bit, and they had given him a few more months to live. So why? Why waste time killing someone who was going to die anyway? Some of you think that the deaths are a sort of offering, and if that's the case, then killing my grandfather makes sense, in a way. But then why wait so long to do it? Winston was killed within weeks of seeing the mother, yet it waited years before it killed my grandfather. I'm not sure how long it waited to kill Andrea's mother, or any of the other victims, but the difference in the amount of time between Winston seeing the mother and his death, and my grandfather seeing it and his death, is really starting to bother me. Why wait so long? What was the point of that? If the mother is killing the people who remember her, why isn't Andrea dead? Why aren't I dead? And why did Rachel just recently die? Rachel knew about her the same amount of time as Winston and my grandfather. So what is the difference between them? I'm really hoping my grandfather has more information about Winston and Rachel. Maybe something that would help me figure out the reasons between the difference in time of their deaths. I've been thinking about this over and over, and I seem to be getting nowhere. Were there more deaths before Andrea's mom? If so, how would I possibly find someone who remembers? Why didn't Andrea mention the babysitter? Did I even ask about her? What if I did and I forgot? Why wouldn't she tell me? What does Nurse Connor have to do with any of this? And how am I supposed to find her if no one remembers her? Ugh. I feel as if my head is going to explode. I have a 2.5-hour flight, so I'm going to try to read through the third journal and see if there's anything in there that might help me. It's about an hour later. I took a nap and then read through the journal. I think I figured something out, and I'm scared that I'll forget it, so I've already written it down on my phone and even set a reminder so I won't forget. There was something wrong with Winston too. My grandfather had written about how Winston had been in a shootout a few years before all of this mother stuff went down. He had apparently witnessed his previous partner get shot to death when he was a fairly new officer. My grandfather seemed to think that Winston had a sort of mental disorder, and my guess would be some sort of anxiety disorder, or something similar. It just doesn't say, and I'm not a doctor, so this is just a guess. Seeing the mother maybe triggered him in some way. I would really think that seeing a gross monster would have some sort of effect on that, and since he seemed to have some sort of mental breakdown right after encountering the mother, that could explain why he was killed. The mother killed Winston sooner because his mental disorder was affecting him in some way, the way that my grandfather's cancer was affecting him. But that brings me back to this question. But why those two? And what about Rachel? Was something wrong with her? There's really no easy way for me to figure that out. She's dead, and her son blocked me, so I'm really not sure about that. If the mother is killing people who have some sort of illness, why isn't Andrea dead? She's blind and had a series of mental breakdowns when she was younger. I just feel like I'm missing something. But what? Once I started thinking about this, other things started to bother me. If my grandfather forgot everything about the mother, as Rachel said, why didn't he forget the story that he told me? And why didn't I? He clearly had no problem remembering Andrea's name, the year, or even the mother itself. Also, why doesn't his memories, like starting in 1976, match up with what other people know, like Andrea being born in the 60s, making it impossible for her to be 5 or 6 in 1976, as my grandfather told me. I don't think the nurses would lie about Andrea's age, and she does look like she's in her 50s. I just feel like I'm missing one key piece of information, something that I've already forgotten, something that I haven't even figured out yet. I also feel like I should address my mother's suicide. I don't know exactly how she killed herself. My dad told me that she had on my 16th birthday. He was never specific about it, and I never wanted to push him to talk about something that was probably painful. However, I'm now thinking that I might have to ask him about it. A lot of your theories are starting to make sense to me, and I just need to be sure that my mother wasn't a victim of the mother. It's been a few hours later now. I've been at home for a bit, and I decided to ask my father about my mother's death. Turns out, she drove her car into a lake. Everyone still remembers this, so I'm assuming the mother had nothing to do with her suicide. I'm very relieved about this. I'd rather my mother have killed herself voluntarily than have been murdered by some supernatural being. My father forgot about Rachel already. I checked her Facebook page, and her kids still seem to remember her, so I'm not exactly sure how this whole forgetting the mother victim thing works. I feel as though I've been just rambling and grasping for clues now. I've been reading through the rest of my grandfather's journals, but all I've come across so far are the details of Charles and Luna's deaths. There are things that I pretty much already knew. How they died, where they were found. Everything keeps coming back to Andrea. I'm really starting to think you guys are right. She has to be much more involved in this. For starters, she's the only witness to the mother and one of the mother's victims who is still alive. She can speak, but chooses not to. She's blind, but claims she could somehow see all of the victims, and she even remembered their names, which was one thing my grandfather didn't remember. But how do I find out what she's hiding? I can't exactly fly all the way back to New York just to ask her something that she probably won't even answer. She's also not picking up her phone. I could try to call the hospital and ask to speak to her, but everyone there thinks she can't hold a conversation, so the chances of them letting me attempt to speak to her are pretty thin. I'm all out of ideas now. I really need your help. Do any of you have any theories? I'm assuming none of you are being affected by this memory wipe that I keep experiencing, meaning you all probably have a bit of a clear view of this whole situation. I'd really appreciate any theory now, no matter how outrageous it might sound to you. I don't know where else I can go looking for answers. I'm gonna go look through more of my grandfather's things. I'll update further if I come across anything else. So I got a call from the hospital in Los Angeles, where Andrea told me to look for Nurse Connor. It was the same man that I had spoken to earlier, and he was calling me to say that they had found a Nurse Connor. According to the man who I spoke to, Nurse Amelia Connor worked at the hospital from December of '63 to early February of '77, when she was murdered. It wasn't by the mother. Amelia Connor was killed by her ex-boyfriend on her way home from work one night, After finding this out, I've been paying extra thought to the dates that things have been happening. According to my grandfather, all of this started in 1976, but according to the nurse at the New York hospital, this is impossible because Andrea was working in 1965. My grandfather also said that Winston died a few months after seeing the mother. I'm assuming in January because Rachel gave me that month. But that means it would have been January of 77, even though Rachel said it was January of 76, which doesn't make any sense. Why did they each give me a different date? I'm starting to think they might have given me different dates on purpose, but if so, how am I supposed to figure out what the real date is if no one can even remember Winston? And what would be the purpose of giving me a fake year? I figured it out. I remember everything. I don't know when it all came back to me. It was kind of like one of those scenes in a movie where someone suddenly figures out the solution. I really don't know how I remembered, but I know now. I know what's going on. I know what's caused it, and I know who the mother is. I know what the mother is. They weren't sacrifices, at least, not really. They were hosts, a body for the parasite to invade. It's smart, much smarter than anyone knew, and it's been manipulating all of us from the very beginning. The mother is some sort of demon, yes, but it's one that needs a healthy, knowledgeable host in order to survive. I don't know the origin of this monster or why it was created, but it was summoned by Andrea's mother in 1969. In November of the following year, Andrea's mother found out she was sick. She was going to die soon. So, the mother had to kill her first and find a replacement host. Winston was in the wrong place at the wrong time, but he too was flawed. His mental illness made him break down sooner than expected. The mother had to kill him too and find yet another host. Amelia Connor would have been fine if she had not been killed, that is. Then something went wrong with Charles, then with Luna. Then the mother found a new host, a strong host with more knowledge about her existence than any of the others. A host who had managed to remember it even after it had wiped his memory clean. The mother lived in my grandfather for years, but it knew he wasn't going to live forever. Sooner or later, the mother would have to find someone else. Someone who knew more than my grandfather. Someone who would be smart enough to stop themselves from completely forgetting. My grandfather was giving me more knowledge of the mother. By giving me incorrect dates, he was avoiding the possibility of a memory wipe. He was making me a better host. The only way that was going to happen was if I knew more than he did. If I was stronger than he was. But his plan backfired when he was diagnosed with cancer. Who else was there? Who would be able to feed me the information about the mother? Who would I believe? Rachel Winston. She was just collateral damage. She had to die so that the mother could then get into Andrea. Andrea knew enough about her. Not everything, but she knew enough to make the ideal host. She knew enough to fill in some of the blanks so that I would be able to figure out the rest on my own. Andrea has more to do with this. I know it because she didn't die when the mother transferred into a different host, but it won't let me say it. It won't let me connect the dots. I think because it might help me to defeat it. This was all a plan. My grandfather, Rachel, and Andrea were just grooming me to become the ideal host. They thought it would also allow me to control it, but I can't. I don't know how. I saw it. It was every bit as grotesque as you would imagine. It's too late for me, but it isn't too late for you. Stop looking. Stop theorizing. Stop trying to figure it out. It's a trap that I led you into unknowingly. and I apologize for putting all of you in danger. But I'm warning you now, don't try to look for more answers. Don't try to solve this. Just leave it as is. Forget the mother. Don't dig further, because as long as I know more than you do, she has to stay in me. I'm keeping details from you on purpose. It's to keep you all safe, to stop it from taking over anyone else. I shouldn't even be telling you anything else, but I felt as if I owed you some closure. Just please, please, listen to my warnings. As long as I'm the best host, it's trapped in me. I can keep it in there. As long as I know more, it has no choice but to stay here. I can feel it. It's dreadful. This feeling of wanting to tell someone, of wanting to get it out of me. It's overwhelming. I almost can't help it, but I will, because I know it's here, and I know it's watching. Hello, Mother.